Hello, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Addicts Podcast, Season 2, and we're on episode 32. So this is our special Halloween episode. So we'll start out like we always do. And introduce yourself to everybody, Kevin.
Hello, everyone. Apologies for the lack of camera, having issues here. My name is Kevin, also known as Sifu K or Tin K. I'm an experienced paranormal investigator, ordained Taoist wizard, Tai Chi master, I suppose, and creator of Ouija boards.
All right, and as everybody can tell by the accent, we are live from across the pond, across the ocean today, which is cool. So we got a little bit of difference in time zone and time, but that's okay. We made it happen. So let's start out just like we always do. I got a couple of icebreaker questions we always start out with. And the first one is, first of all, it's important for everybody to understand, you are an investigator yourself, and not just, you don't just make Ouija boards and stuff, but you're an investigator too. And that's important to say, because my first question is, what is your favorite location that you've investigated? And what is the bucket list location you would like to investigate?
Oh, that's a couple of good questions. Well, my favorite so far is a little place here in the UK called the Ancient Ram Inn. I'm sure you guys over there may have heard of this place and its infamy. I've done it a couple of times now. I'm actually due to go back next month. Nothing I've ever experienced like the atmosphere in that place, in such a place. So heavy, so thick. The air is so thick in there. It's a phenomenal place. And I can't wait to go back there again. Had loads of great stuff happen there before. There is something there that appears to know me by name, according to all communications. Every time I go there, it's recognizing me, which obviously sparks a curiosity in us and going, okay, where do you know me from? What do you want from me? So it kind of lends to an affinity to the place. So I can't wait to tackle that again. Top on the bucket list places, actually, I want to come to your side of the pond, actually, and Waverly Hills seems to be the place. I see it on all the shows and go, oh, I'd love to get my teeth into that and get lost in that for an evening or two. So I'd really like to tackle some of the big sanatorium style places you guys go over there, just the vastness of it. I'm sure that must create quite an atmosphere and an exploration for the evening. So I'd really like to get my teeth stuck into those at some point.
I definitely agree with that. When you have a location that you go to, and when you go back, they remember you. That's always a really good thing. We have a location that we've been to several times in over here in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. It's called the Glen House, and every time we go there, the spirits remember us. Sometimes they don't like us, but they always remember us. So that's always the thing. And then sanatoriums. Anytime you get to go to a sanatorium, it's a big thing. I've actually had the privilege of going to Waverly Hills on multiple visits, multiple investigations. So I get that. Okay. So
does it live up to the hype, in your opinion?
It never disappoints.
Okay.
I'm actually based in Kentucky, which of course is where Waverly Hills is. So it's only like a 3-hour trip for me. So I've actually investigated it 9 times. My 9th time was just 5 months ago, and it was actually probably one of my most active investigations. Before we even really got started, the caretaker was giving us the tour and showing us around, and as we was just walking and getting the tour, something physically pushed me down on the ground. So that's how the night started. And from there, it just kind of escalated. we got a lot of activity in like the morgue and the body shoot and the electric shock therapy room. So yeah,
Wow.
always, always a good time. And
I better start saving up to come visit you, Ken.
we plan on going back next year about April. So if you can get over here in April, you can come with us.
Oh, don't tempt me. My wife would kill me if she finds out I'm sticking that on the credit card.
All right, so let's talk about how you investigate. What is your investigation style? Do you consider yourself like an old school investigator, scientific investigator, a hybrid? Just how do you investigate?
Yeah, kind of a hybrid. And I mean, obviously creating Ouija boards, that's one of my favorite mediums as an investigative tool. I see them very much as an investigative tool, and I think they get a very bad press. I personally see them as another conduit for us to enter a certain frequency, certain mindset to be able to communicate. I don't believe it's not always the board itself doing stuff. So I love the traditional bits of that. I love bringing into play love trying out the more modern equipment and giving that a go at various degrees. But I often, I say that's with Tai Chi, I go a lot on my gut feeling and instinct, and I'm very sensitive to energies. So I kind of just take you can come up with any plan you want for an investigation and go, right, okay, tonight I'm taking this equipment, that equipment. But I like experiencing more than investigating. I sometimes refer to myself as an experiencer, a paranormal adventure experiencer. I'm not out to try and prove anything to anyone. I want to experience it myself. So part of that is being there, being in the moment, and going with what my gut tells me I need to be doing at that particular time. So I do have a vast array of equipment with me that I may break out, especially if things are going slowly. But a lot of times I try to be in the moment, be involved with my fellow investigators, my friends there with us, and just immerse ourselves in it as much as possible and tend to go with the flow.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the thing. Way I like to put it is I tell everybody that I use the old school techniques with the new school technology. So yeah, I was born with abilities. Now I consider them gifts. At 5, 6 years old, I didn't really consider it a gift. But now that I've learned to use it, I consider it a gift. So obviously, I rely on my gifts a lot, and then I I use all the old school stuff, and I have all the new school stuff. So really, what I found like with the new stuff is like if I'm doing a residential investigation, if I'm in somebody's house trying to help them, it's just a lot easier to go to the homeowner and be like, this is what I captured on my SLS, or this is the EVP I captured. If you have that evidence like that, it's just easier for the homeowner. But like you said, when it comes to like me and you, and I'm really unless I'm doing a residential investigation, like you said, I'm not out to prove anything to anybody. So I'm just there to to experience it, like you said. So yeah, so I trust what I feel, a lot. So yeah, I definitely get that. So I'm going to bring up if it works like it's supposed to. I'm going to bring up an image of one of the boards that you made for me.
Okay, fantastic.
Can you see it?
Yes, I did. So this is the one for the expo I made.
Yes.
Enjoyed doing that and come up with the artwork for that one. I did enjoy doing that one. Did it go? Did it sell at the auction?
Yes. Matter of fact, I ended up having to sell both of them. Like,
Really?
Yes. Like that's how good they got. The guy that bought the Paranormal Addicts one. He was actually going to join us today, but
okay.
he actually lives in Canada. So the board went from England to Kentucky of the Canada. So
Oh
so
wow!
so it definitely has some traveling on it. And
He should have told him to contact me, and I would have made him one for himself. So, did you get the opportunity to use the board at all before you sold?
yes, I actually used both of them. Uh,
Ah,
and so the one that you made for the expo,
mhm,
I actually tested it at a location that we've actually been to several times. It's a Civil War
mhm.
basic training camp for the Confederacy. So, but it's out in the middle of nowhere, and 5,000 soldiers died there prior to serving in the war. Smallpox, meningitis, just everything. And there's a mass grave there. So you have all that history. And then also, after the war, they turned it into a cemetery. So there's actually a witch's grave that's part of the cemetery. So I took it out there, and I actually was able to make contact with the so-called witch. I mean, obviously, it came through that she wasn't really a witch. She was, but back in the 1900s in Western Kentucky, you was either a Christian or you were a witch. So yeah, but so I got to use that, and then the one you made for the podcast, I actually took it with me to yeah, to the Rock Island Expo,
Mhm.
in Rock Island, Illinois, and I actually tested it at the Rock Island, where it's a furniture store now. It was a school and a bunch of stuff, and I used it there. And what was really interesting is one, one of the uh, one of the other vendors there, if that's the term you want to use, is actually they actually do a traveling Ouija board museum,
Okay,
and, uh, and he loved it. But
really
yeah,
fantastic.
what was really interesting is he wanted to buy it, but he was too slow. I had somebody else offer me make an offer I couldn't refuse before he got to. So he would. So yeah, it was really popular. So yeah.
Oh,
So
excellent.
what I want you to do right now is I want you to explain to everybody listening and then we'll listen later what makes your boards special or more relevant than others. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll start the story of how I got into making them first, to be honest with you, and that will bring it into play. Um, so, obviously, being an investigator and going out about and having used boards before and not like them, they're thinking, you know, the boards I could find to get, I wanted a nice, a personal one for myself. And the only things I could find were these A4 laser cut, laser printed things that, if you're taking an investigation trying to fit four people around a board, it's too small. Or these, and there are some people out there who make these beautiful works of art for Ouija boards, but they're massive. They're really huge things. And you go, okay, that's something for you to keep in your home. It's not something I want in my home. You can't really take that on the go with you around an investigation. So there really is nothing serving people who actually want to go out on active investigations in a small group and use a board. So I'll give it a go making it myself. So I bought myself a pyrography pen and taught myself the basics of pyrography and started practicing. And I was thinking, what can I do to make this board work? And then what? And then the answer, as with a lot of things I find from my studies of Taoism, the answers are within the question. The fact that I'm designing and making this to work, and that intention is I'm not making these to be a piece of art. I'm not making these to make money and mass produce them. Every single bit about what I'm doing is for this to be an active board and an open portal for entities to communicate with us and for the user to be able to connect with it. And so I've brought in elements of my studies from martial arts, Tai Chi, Taoist wizardry into play. So the whole time I meditate with the boards to imbibe them with chi energy. I quite often on the back I'll cast spells. Usually use the same two spells. I use one that's called Empowering the Magus, which means empower the user of this spell. So whoever's using the board is kind of empowering them. One that's Invoking the Light, which is just kind of a spell to just increase the spiritual energy in the area, and imbibe those into the board. And I said that the actual art and craft, as you probably find with haunted objects that you come across, a lot of the time it's not a spirit in there. What you find is the residue of the emotional intention of the artist that's created it gets imbibed into an object and gives it energy. So the actual act of me sitting there with that pure intention of this is going to be a working board, I believe gives that power. I also then couple in and try to make sure that my board contains each of the 5 elements that we, 5 elemental energies that we practice in Taoist arts to bring it some balance and power. And I've since then upped my game and added things. I started collecting soil samples and stone samples from places I go to and burning them into the board to try and bring some of their energy and essence to it. That's not just haunted sites, that's some sacred sites as well, like Glastonbury Tor we have over here, a couple of ley lines. Avebury Henge, which was a Stonehenge that at one point was bigger than Stonehenge. Everyone's had a Stonehenge, heard of Avebury. Avebury was 3 times the size of Stonehenge. It was a fantastic place. So I've collected soil samples from these and I can burn these into the board to try and imbibe them there. Sacred waters, holy waters. I even know how to do spells to bless water itself, to anoint them when I'm using watercolors on the board. And just everything's about it is trying to get more energy, more emotional content into that, with the design of making this an active board. I've now been playing with on your Paranormal Addicts board. It was one of the first ones I ever did, was actually starting putting crystals and stones and laying those into the boards as well. So although I would readily admit that there's some people out there making some wonderful pieces of art as boards and beautiful pieces, I think I'm quite unique in the fact that everything about what I'm doing with these boards is with the pure intention of making this a lively board with an open, a connection between the user and spirit.
I mean, yeah, I definitely. I mean, like I said, I ended up there at Rock Island, and we even had a guy that had the traveling museum, and he was talking about how unique and how unique with a purpose, I guess is a better way to put it, because there's a lot of unique Ouija boards out there, but like you said, yours everything about your board is with purpose, and that's what makes it special to me. That's why I was actually upset that both my boards sold. Now I'm going to have to get another one from you.
Welcome anytime. We'll discuss that in the next couple of weeks. We'll get you another one made up. And it's little things as well, little touches as well. I'm beginning to adding detachable carry chains, because I'm sitting there also about practicality of when you're on the go as an active investigator. It helps and goes, right, okay, how do I want to transport this board amongst this investigation with me? I don't want to set up in one place. I don't want to spend, precious time when you've got to run from one room to another when you hear a room like, okay, I want to wrap this away, protect it. Okay, why don't I just add a carry chain to it so I can actually pick it up and carry it as a carry chain, and then it's not actually going to be bashing into the other equipment in my bag either. So little touches like that I've been starting to add in just from my own experience of investigating on the go, of going, okay, well, I want to get this board from this room to that room quickly without damaging it, and keeping it intact, and just little things like that, and also make it look good and special as well. Bring in mind home storage. You can then hang it on the wall as a functional piece of art if you wish.
Yeah. I mean, yes, especially like the one that you made for the expo. You put the chain on it and stuff. And that's what I was telling my wife and everybody. I was like, if this doesn't get what I wanted to get out of the auction, I was like, I'm just going to keep this and hang it in my office. Yeah, but yeah, Yeah, we actually had a really successful event this year, and the Ouija board was part of it. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the Ouija board and uh, like the bad reputation it has, if that's what you want to call it. Why do you think? Why do you think some people still think that a Ouija board is so evil? And you know, uh,
It's an easy target in occult. I mean, it's one of those things that once it's got a bad reputation, it sticks, and then it's used. I mean, you look at anything in press, or even you look at some of the in press media, and even in some of the more well-known paranormal TV shows. You see, as soon as someone says, "Oh, you know," such and such lived here and they played with Ouija boards, it's immediately like, oh no, they were occult devil worshippers, and who knows what they've opened with that. And it's just kind of exacerbated and snowballed from there. And I don't think anyone sensible has ever been given airtime to sit and say it's kind of nonsense, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are what some people refer to as negative entities out there that we do encounter, and you may well encounter them through a Ouija board, but that's not the Ouija board's doing. That's just them being there. If you keep swimming through the sea enough, eventually you're going to bump into a shark. It's the same thing as with experiencing the paranormal. If you keep trying to experience the paranormal, you're going to eventually come across something that's not as nice as everything else. You can't keep walking through the jungle and avoid the jaguars. You can't keep swimming through the sea and avoid sharks. So that will at some point happen to you. That's not the board's doing. It's I purely believe the board is a way of us focusing our spiritual energy and intention into a concentrated point, which allows that communication portal or point to happen and exist, and that's pretty much all they are. I mean, if you want to go to the history of the Ouija board, there's actually evidence that a sort of Ouija board was used back in ancient China by the ancient Taoists. You're talking literally a couple of thousands of years ago of using characters written out on something to use as a form of divination and communication with spirits. So, I mean, it's a common misconception that it was invented as a board game in the early 1900s. No, a form of Ouija board has been literally about for thousands of years. It was popularized back and resurgence during the spiritualist movement. And then, some people tried to cotton onto that and use it as a commercial item. But that's what it's mistakenly believed that that's where it actually comes from. But that's not the case at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the commercialization of the Ouija board, and I just recently found this out because I'm also a big history buff, especially when it comes to like the Civil War and the Confederacy and stuff. And the guy that patented the Ouija board for Milton Bradley was actually a Confederate officer.
Okay.
So we got the Confederacy to thank for the commercialized Ouija board in America, as well as Coca-Cola. And but yeah, so to me, a Ouija board has always been like anything else. Like you said, it's just a tool. If it's used properly, it's a useful tool. If you don't use it properly, like every other piece of equipment in the paranormal field, it can be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, exactly it. And so if I believe it's a tool for you to open and concentrate your own spiritual energy and your own levels of consciousness. And if you are going to start playing with your own levels of consciousness and your spiritual energy in a foolhardy way, then that's also, a very silly thing and can lead to disaster. So, yeah, exactly that. But I'd like just to reiterate, it's never actually the board itself. It's always quite more often than not your intention and your levels of energy, or it could just be so happen that you are in an area that is inhabited by something not so nice, and you are opening yourself up to communication with that. And that may be via the Ouija board, but you might also be doing that just by meditating, sitting in a seance, trying with a spirit box. You're opening yourself up to communication with something that may already be there. And yeah, so it's not the board itself.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point and an important point, especially for the ones out there listening that are just interested in becoming investigators. And you know, uh, when you open up these lines of communication, especially like me, my gifts. When I open up, I don't get to dictate who communicates with me, so it can be dangerous. The paranormal investigating's not all rainbows and sunshine. You sometimes you come across a malicious spirit or whatever. So yeah, that's the reason if you don't know what you're doing, you need to not do it, because you can make something worse, or you can open up a portal for something evil unintentionally. So you need to know what you're doing if you're going to be using any tool. I mean, whether it's a Ouija board or a spirit box or anything.
Or any walk of life, you need to know how to use a chainsaw before you turn it on, don't you, really? Otherwise you're going to be chopping your own arm off. So any item of equipment, have an idea of what you're doing, or proceed with caution, really.
Right. So I investigated this location in Bristol, Tennessee, a couple of times this year. It's actually called the Urine Shrine. So the architecture of it is made like a Turkish shrine, but the place is designed to be a safe place for all practices. So they got like witchcraft, they got everything, and besides all that energy you have, they also house attached objects and stuff. So it's just a crazy place because of the energy. One of the items that they have there is actually a Ouija board from a serial killer out of New York State.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were down there, both times actually, but when we were down there, they decided that I needed to be the one to use this Ouija board because of my energy anyway, because of my abilities. So what struck me about this Ouija board is you would assume with its history and everything, it would be like something special. But it was really just a Parker Brothers $8 Ouija board that you'd go buy off the shelf,
Yep.
Toys R Us. So yeah, so, but there's nothing wrong with it, like we both said, nothing wrong with the Ouija board if used right. So here's a funny story. It's a funny story about me, Kevin. So my first ever introduction to a Ouija board, I was 13, and I was 13, and my youth pastor's adopted daughter. She was like well, nowadays we'd call it like emo or goth.
Right. Okay. Yep.
This was 1987, so we didn't have those terms back then. Back then you were just an outsider. But anyway, so that's what she was. But she was 16 when she was turning 16, and she was hot. I mean, she looked like Alyssa Milano back in the day, and so she invited me to her sweet 16th birthday party. And like I said, I was 13, so I wasn't going to say no. And so I was the only boy invited. So we had the party. It was a big hotel back in the day. It's not even there anymore. It's called the Executive Inn. But that's back when people. It was one of the places where people would have like their 16th birthday party. There was an exercise swimming pool and a ballroom and all that stuff. So anyway, so we were there, and and she broke out a Ouija board during her birthday party, and so that was my first introduction into a Ouija board, and I really didn't have much experiences with it at that age, but it was my introduction to it. one thing I did learn through that experience though is that the Ouija board wasn't evil. You know, so that was a positive thing out of it. Uh, so yeah,
I'd just like to say, on my investigations, my experience, having used Ouija boards now hundreds of thousands of times, I would say that easily at least 80% of the time, the communication we tend to get from Ouija boards tend to be spirits attached to the users of the board, not of the area or building we're investigating ourselves. It's usually a loved one taking the opportunity to go, okay, they're open to communicate. I'm actually going to take this opportunity to say hello or say something. I can honestly say that 80% of the time, in my experience, communication we get with Ouija boards is more often than not that someone, either a relative of mine or someone known to someone using the board, taking the opportunity to say, okay, they're trying to communicate. It is my chance to say hello. And that tends to be 8% of the time, the communication we have, rather than tapping into spirits of the area we're investigating or any nasty evil spirits. So in that respect, it can be quite a fantastic tool in that way.
yeah. I really, I really think that goes that way with every tool. You know, people, thanks to the TV shows and the movies and all that stuff, and your YouTubers, all that, everybody has this in their head that we choose who communicates with us. And it doesn't work that way. It's whoever wants to communicate, that's who communicates. A lot of times, it's whoever has a message. So yeah, that's the point to understand. Going back to the spiritualist movement, you know, people don't realize, they think that like the paranormal craze that we have now is new, but back then it was probably even bigger. I mean, even the presidents were getting tarot readings and Ouija board readings and doing seances and stuff. So it's not that new, but in some areas it is. Like I was born and raised here in Western Kentucky. Yeah, I moved away and moved back. But growing up, I tell people not only do I live in the Bible Belt, but I live in the heart of the Bible Belt. So uh, I was told at 6 years old that I was a tool of the devil and I was going to hell because of my abilities. And so you know, and that's what you're dealing with. Especially with the Ouija board, but with everything, you're dealing with closed-mindedness. Instead of it could help if people let it help. It's a useful tool like any other tool. But yeah, that's the thing that you know I tell people all the time. That to me, the best thing about like the TV shows and everything is now you can talk about it more openly. I still get some of the uh, who judge me because I'm an investigator or whatever. But I also get people now that want to talk to me about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I find is that people quite often make a joke at first when you tell them that's what you do, and they'll joke about it, but then they'll grab you when you're at a quiet moment and say, actually, this happened to me once. What do you think? And everyone's got one of those stories to tell. And at that moment when they first find out, oh, I'm a paranormal investigator as well, I go and do this, and they go, oh, okay, go chasing ghosts. But then later they'll come to you and go, actually, as you said that, this happened to me once, and I would need to tell you about it. And I wanted to. So that's quite. Yeah, it's quite an odd one that it's almost in the group setting. No one wants to kind of buy in and have this open conversation, and will almost mock you for being a paranormal investigator. But when they got you alone, everyone then wants to take that opportunity to say something odd that's happened to them and our experience they've had. And that's some of the things. Sometimes when my crew, we go out and we do almost urban exploring paranormal investigations. There's lots of sites around near us. Obviously England's a very old place, and where I come from, it's very, very rich in history. In Portsmouth, we have surrounded by castles and forts. We've been the home of the British Navy for centuries. So there's lots of fantastic places for us to explore, but a lot of them are abandoned now. So you can just walk up, walk around. But when you do that, you'll bump into other people doing so, and you'll get the what you're doing here. And I've learned, rather than just shy away from the fact what we're doing, is to be open about it and go, well, we come here to see if that we're paranormal investigators. We come and heard this place is haunted. We come, and the amount of people when you're in that situation will suddenly open up to you and go, wow, that's brilliant. That's great. I've had this experience once. I saw this here, that there. And any other setting, they would sit there and probably want to laugh at you and say, oh, what are you doing studying ghosts? But in that setting, they immediately respond and go, oh, that's excellent. We've even had security guards going, what are you guys doing? Oh, we just want to investigate for ghosts, really. We're not here to damage anything. Brilliant. Can I join in? Yeah, of course you can. So
Yeah, one of the places that I investigate a lot, we actually use it like our training location or training ground. It's it's an abandoned hospital in Carroll, Illinois, which Carroll is basically it's basically a living ghost town anyway. But but that's where my dad and my grandparents are from. So it has a significant meaning to me, you know. So one of the times we were at the hospital and we had people across driving by the hospital yelling at us, "Oh, you don't belong!" Blah 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 blah. Well, one of them decided to stop and talk to us because we was outside, in our taking a little 15-minute break between uh, rounds or whatever. And we were getting on water and whatever. And it's actually a cop pulls in there and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, we're investigating. He's like, well, you don't belong here. I'm like, well, actually, I grew up 4 blocks away. Uh, I grew up 4 blocks away on 24th Street. And then he was like, oh, cool. He's like, well, did you find anything? He's like, can you take me around? So yeah, it's it happens a lot. One of the locations that we're going back to on the 15th, so in a couple of weeks, it's actually a mansion or whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it, that was built in 1809. So from American standpoints, that's old, So and the history of the location is it was the guy that built the house. He was a Revolutionary War officer. So to repay him for his service, they gave him a piece of property in Tennessee. And he built a mansion. He actually ended up becoming a doctor and making his own wine or moonshine or whatever. And he was actually really well respected. Of course, he had slaves. Everybody had slaves back then, but he actually treated his slaves like family. He actually broke the law and he educated his slaves. So so he was actually really, really respected by everybody. Well, when he passed away, his son apparently was not really, really respected, and one of the slaves murdered him on the front porch of the house. And so when we went down there and investigated it, we actually took part of the public tour that they do before we investigated, and like all the other people on the tour was like, "Oh, you're investigators," blah blah blah. So it's actually really cool.
Oh. I think someone's saying they're struggling hearing you.
So we're at 40 minutes. So I'm actually going to cut us over 45 minutes today because with it being Halloween, we got like 2 or 3 other podcasts coming on after me, to have special episodes or whatever. So I do not want to cut into their time.
Okay.
So here's what we need to do right now. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you if they want to get one of your awesome boards for themselves.
I have a website at www.seafood-k.co.uk. I'll be sharing that with Kent to share with the broadcast of this podcast, or look me up on Facebook, C4K Elemental Arts and Pyrography. Get in touch. Every single board I do is unique and bespoke to you. So I don't sell via a shop that we won't find stock to buy. Everything I make is done with purpose and intention, with you in mind. So if you want something for you, you have an idea of what you want your board to look like, get in touch with me, and we'll take it from there. Be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I know what my next one's going to look like, so we'll discuss that.
It'll be excellent. I look forward to
it. We'll discuss that over the next couple of days. I got to go take my grandkids some trick or treat candy here in a minute. So
fantastic.
So
I'm going to go to bed, but we're almost at midnight here. You see, so over here. So
yeah,
I'll see you
we're actually. I'm not doing anything as far as an investigation tonight, but actually tomorrow we're actually going to do we're celebrating my team, Kent 10 Paranormal. We're celebrating our 5th year as a team. So we're actually going to do a multi-location investigation and camp out in the land between the lakes. We're going to investigate an old church, and we're going to investigate a couple of cemeteries that they, instead of moving the bodies, they just put the lake over it. And we're actually going to investigate the dog man. If you know anything about the dog man.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the LBO is the home of the dog man. So we're actually going to do a dog man investigation tomorrow too. So that will be fun. And so everybody get on Kevin's Facebook page, look him up, get you aboard. My guest next week is actually going to be Joe Shortridge and Jen Shortridge from the 222 podcast. I actually got to talk to them at Rock Island, and I got to be on their podcast. So they're going to be on my podcast this time. So everybody have a happy Halloween, and we will be back next week at the same bad time, the same bad channel. Until then, live paranormal.
Thank you all for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for being on.